I am really excited to have Yogesh on here with us today from Simple Brackets. Now, he joined us in the past, but we wanted to dive deep into this topic. He's an expert in web design and making sure that everything runs really efficiently with speed and all of that kind of stuff. So we're going to be talking about improving your web vitals for a healthy website, because one of the things that is so frustrating when you go onto somebody's website is if you're waiting forever for things to download or load, you're kind of going, oh, why is this website taking so long? And there's so many other aspects that we can have a look at behind the scenes to make sure that our websites run to their optimal capacity so that our customers are happy. So he's going to be delving into that today. Now, we are streaming live on 4 platforms. So we're here on Zoom, we got YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. So if one of those other options is a better fit for you, then feel free to join us there. Now, you can still participate with the session on any of the platforms. Use the comment section, the Q&A section, or the chat function in order to do so. I will be checking them throughout this session, and your questions matter. Your business matters to us, and we want to help you succeed. So do drop your questions in there. Yogesh is going to be answering those at the end, just in case maybe your question gets answered throughout. So we want to make sure we can stay really focused throughout the session, and then at the end we'll address questions. Thanks, Yogesh, for joining us today. I'm really loving that you had time to join us again.
Thank you, Anna-Marie. Thank you for the invitation. Yeah, the last session was great, and we thought, it could be the second session would give us, some more, time to actually dive deep into these things, because, recently Google actually launched one of the algorithms that actually takes all these web core vitals into aspect, and that actually helps them, all the websites promote on their search engines, and it is one of the important things now.
Yeah, and Google, really, their algorithms are always changing, aren't they? They're updating.
Yes.
We've got the cookie apocalypse. We've got all kinds of things happening.
Yes.
And I'm excited to learn a little bit more about how to evaluate my website and in the way that it functions to get it to the best place for optimal, engagement with my customers.
Yes.
So
yes, absolutely.
This is going to be exciting.
All right.
I'm going to turn off my video, and I'll make sure everything's running in the background, but I'm here to support, and I'm here to kind of check out those questions.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Anna-Marie. All right, so I'm going to quickly share my screen. All right, so I'm just going to quickly introduce myself. My name is Yogesh Sengar. I'm the lead designer and developer at Simple Brackets. At Simple Brackets, we offer custom tailored web solutions for all businesses, all size businesses across New Zealand. And we understand that this whole process could be really overwhelming for the new business, especially during this lockdown and during this pandemic, it has been critical to move your business online, and if you could do it in most efficient way, that's perfect. So we always try to keep the whole process simple and also guide you throughout, so you are confident in making your own decisions. Okay. So today we will be discussing why core web vitals are important, and what you can do to improve them for healthy website. So Google recently launched a web core vital update. It's called Google Page Experience. So in this whole Google algorithm update, what they have really focused on is Google, user page experience. That's why it's named that way. In this algorithm, they have like 3 aspects that they really focus on. This session, will be a little bit technical, but don't worry too much about it. I will explain as I go through the slides, and there are a few tools that you can use that will make sense of it all even more. And this is like, there are a few tools also mentioned at the end, so you can actually try them out after the session. Yeah, so core web vitals. This is the metric that Google uses now to decide whether to promote a specific website or not. There are three metrics. So first is largest contentful paint. I will call it LCP for short. And first input delay, FID, and cumulative layout shift, CLS. Okay, we will be diving into them, one at a time. I'll explain, what they are and what you can do to improve them. Yeah. And the part where I explain how you can improve them, it will be a little bit technical, but don't worry about it. It will all make sense at the end. All right, so let's look into LCP, largest contentful paint. So this metric is basically there to measure the loading performance of your website. So whenever someone visits your website, it basically measures how long it takes for a website to load the content above the fold. And above the fold part is important. I'll show you an example in a minute. So in most cases, it is basically the hero image, banner, website header, or a large block of text. And usually you would want to aim for 2.5 seconds or less. If you're 2.5 seconds or less, you're basically in the green zone, which is the best place to be in. I'll quickly, I'll just open up this our website, Simple Brackets website. As soon as you actually land onto your website, this is what you see. And when you all that section, all this what you see currently is basically is called above the fold. So when you land onto a website without scrolling down, whatever you see at the very first is basically the content that is above the fold. And that's what this metric is basically looking for, how fast you can load that above the fold section. All right, so here are a few things you can do to improve this metric, scores for this metric. So quality hosting is definitely an important aspect of basically any website. The reason is every website is made of assets like images, there are files, code files, and there are videos you load. All these elements are basically delivered by a host. And if host is not a good quality host, then they won't be able to perform as well. It's like any computer, right? You can have a really a computer that is working slow and a computer that's like really fast, and of course you're going to get some really good response from a really high quality computer than a really old one, basically. So yes, hosting is important, and a good hosting will also support your website when there's a high usage, peak time. Sometimes, especially for e-commerce websites, what happens is they usually have really high traffic. So if there are so many people onto your website buying stuff, you would want your website to perform. Otherwise, in some cases, we have seen even the famous websites sometimes have crashed. It is because their server couldn't handle it. Yeah, so you would always want to be mindful of that. Always, remove unused code, plugins in case of WordPress. So what it means is, you see, when you have a code, a specific piece of code onto your website, that basically adds a size. It increases the size of the website. So and also when you have a WordPress website, let's say, and you have a lot of plugins onto it. So what happens is each plugin loads all these, of their own files, like CSS files, JavaScript, and there are code, and there's some processing that they do in the background. Yeah, and then all of this actually increases the overall size of your website. So what you want to do is you want to keep your website as light as possible in terms of how many MB your website is. So if you get rid of all the unused code and plugins that you don't use, or your plugins that you just have lying around just for the sake of it, you should get rid of it and make your website light so it loads faster. Enable effective caching. This is one of the most important things you should, and this is something super easy to do. So if you are using WordPress website, there are heaps of plugins, and we will suggest you a few at the end of the session. You can just install it and activate it, and it will take care of caching for you. What it does is caching reduces how much work a browser has to do to load your website, and also helps with loading your website faster. As a result. So Content Delivery Network, CDN for short. Content Delivery Network is a great way to split the load of your server, of your main server. So what it does is Content Delivery Network is basically delivers all the files, like CSS, JavaScript, or images files from the server, from the other server that is close to the user that is visiting your website. And this way, because they're geographically close to that CDN server, what it does, it delivers those files very fast, and your server doesn't have to do as much work to get things going. And that way your server also have a higher capacity to handle high usage. Always optimize images, lazy load them. It is one of the most critical parts, because what we see is in most we have worked with multiple websites, like many websites here, and we have seen one of the two reasons that actually like one of the top ones is images. A lot of people, what they do is, like, when they upload the images onto their website, they don't optimize them, and images are actually usually have like really high size on them, and if you don't optimize them, like we have even seen like people uploading images that actually are 15 MB, and in majority of the cases, even your whole website is not 15 MB. So one image that takes up that much time, that much space, is not good. Yeah, so always optimize images. You can always optimize images before you even load it onto the server, and we will show you some tools how to do that. Host fonts locally. This is the second reason people like websites actually rank poorly in these metrics. So what happens is when you load when you load fonts, you can, like most people we have seen, as they load fonts from Google font library. And yeah, Google fonts, their servers obviously are good, but at the again, they are a third party servers. So it is always it is always good to load your fonts locally, like from your own server, than a third-party server. So you can always, copy them onto your server and load them locally, and that helps with the website load. Load critical CSS. Critical CSS is basically the CSS that applies to the above the fold area. So, just like I just showed you our Simple Brackets website. So whatever you see on there, I'll quickly open that up again. So CSS that applies on the header, and also, which makes it look, blue. And also there's, you can see that there's a background image on there. Everything that is styling that is applied through CSS, it has to be loaded as soon as possible. And that is called critical CSS. Always concatenate and minify CSS and JS files. So all websites are made of code, images, and all the different elements. And at the end of the day, what we are aiming to do is to reduce the overall size of your website. So concatenation, so minification is basically compressing the code, CSS code and JavaScript code, and reducing the size of it. I
Sorry,
see a
can
few
you just
questions.
I just popped on just because I think that it's needed for this.
Yeah,
And now
yeah.
some folks are popping in some questions that we'll answer
Yeah.
at the end. But
Yeah.
I think we need to, can you tell us again what CSS stands for?
Okay, CSS is basically cascading style sheet. So CSS is a language, like it's a coding language that helps you style the website. Like it's the visual aspect of how it looks.
Okay, thank you. Perfect.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna take up these two questions and I'm gonna answer them right now.
Okay.
So one of the viewers asking if I'm with Squarespace, will Squarespace automatically optimize the size? All right. So what happens is there are multiple platforms, and they're all have a different way of working. So we don't use Squarespace as much, but it is always advised to optimize your images before you actually load them onto any platform. We will show you some of the tools that you can use to do that. And Squarespace is basically like if you have access to the code, let's say CSS or JavaScript, you can concatenate them and put them onto the website, back onto the website, because some of the platforms offer you that functionality. They don't do it themselves, but they let you do it, take care of it.
So I guess that kind of ties into this second question that Laura has here, which is what's a good target image size for optimization?
All right. Okay. So, well, there's nothing. There's no one solution to this. The reason is, you can have a website and you could use the image in so many different ways. You could have an image like a thumbnail, and you could have an image that is like really wide. Like, for example, in our case, we have like, in the background, you can see that it is actually taking the whole screen size. So what you basically want to do is like in terms of how big and wide and height, you should always want to keep it as close to how it's going to look on the browser. So if it's a thumbnail, just have the image size, thumbnail size, not a big one. And in terms of image like size, in terms of how many MBs it could actually take, you should aim for as low as you can. So less is always better, but there are tools available that can reduce the size of an image without reducing its quality. So that would be the perfect balance.
And that's what you're going to show us some of these, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
All right, I'm going to move on to the next slide. All right, so the second metric is first input delay. And it measures, the interactivity performance of your website. And it is like when you actually visit Google PageSpeed Insight, it is actually measured in total blocking time. So it is basically the difference between time when you have loaded the first contentful paint, which is everything above the fold area, and up until when a user can actually have a meaningful interaction with the website. So you might have noticed when you're visiting a website, it is, you can see that above the fold it has loaded, but you can't do anything with it. The reason is it hasn't completely loaded. What you're seeing is the above the fold area, but how long it takes to load completely so you can actually start interacting with the website. So this is basically what this metric measures, and you always want to aim for 100 millisecond and and less. So what happens is, I know 100 millisecond sounds like so it's such a short time frame, this is one of the most important things Google actually takes into account when they actually measure your website against these metrics. So let's go through some of the solutions that we can use to improve this. So so generate generate and cache HTML as much as possible, and make the browser work as less as possible. So what is basically mean is I'm going to take WordPress website, the way they work, as an example. So you see, WordPress websites mostly are built with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and there's also like PHP. So what PHP does is PHP actually generate HTML for you. And all that happens because WordPress, like it's a dynamic content, it's a dynamic code. It generates the HTML for you that happens on the server, and then server sends that all the code to your browser, and browser shows it as a website to you. So if you can generate and cache HTML, so what that means is each time you go to that website, server doesn't have to process that HTML and create it for you again. And that way, you're saving that time, and it is like, when you're visiting the website, it is quickly giving you the HTML that is already generated for you. Yeah, so that saves the time, that loads your website faster, make the browser work less as possible. So what that means is, there are so many ways you can, reduce the load of a browser. So whenever you use, request a website, it also caches your website. Sometimes if you have the caching enabled, it will cache your website, and that way browser doesn't have to work as much, because it is using all the local assets to load the website. And also there are a few other things that you have to keep things in account. It will be in the next slide. So ensure browser caching files, if cache files effectively. What that means is there will be some assets on your website that you will require more frequently, like you need to update them more frequently than others. So let's say that the Google Analytics file is a really good example. So that file, that file you mostly use to track all the engagement on your website, the traffic and user behavior and all those things. But the Google Analytics file is the kind of file that won't really update as often. So you can have rules against it, so that it doesn't renew the cache as often. Because each time the cache is renewed, browser has to basically delete the old file and then get the new one from your server or from a Google server. So yeah. I see one more question. I have to take an important, will these slides be available for later? Yes, these slides will be available for later. We will upload them for you, so you can download and have all these solutions. You can refer them, and there are tools at the end as well. All right, I'm moving on to the next point. Use content delivery network. I've already explained this point, but so most of the solutions that we are offering, not most of them, but some of them are actually common in all three metrics. And the reason is they're so easy to implement on a website, and also they have a biggest impact, on across all three metrics. So content delivery network is one of them. The next one is delay loading less critical scripts like analytics and social media, etc. So whenever you load any website, what happens is browser sends out requests for each file that is needed to load a website. And in all those, and there could be hundreds of 20, 50, all the files that you have. there will be some files that will be less critical. Like, for example, analytics. Analytics. The first priority of your website is to load fast and give a really good user experience, to your user. And analytics is something that you track the user behavior. That is something that can wait. And social media and all of those things, because once someone actually visits your website, they don't really use the share option or whatever right away. They interact with your content, and then they look into sharing or whatever, all those things. So you should always load them at the very end of your website loading. Yeah. So lazy load JavaScript on demand, chats, videos, etc. So yeah, we already talked about minifying JavaScript files and loading them in most effective ways. But here's another option: is lazy load JavaScript on demand. What this means is you can there are many websites these days which has chat option. And also we use a lot of videos and chats. All these features need JavaScripts to load them. And every request that we make and every every byte in size that we add onto the website, it can cost you in terms of all these metrics because you want to be most efficient. So what you can do is like, for example, chats, you don't have to load them right away. So you can have something that is visual cue that is there. So once a user actually clicks onto it, like, for example, a bubble that says talk to us, right? And when you click onto it, it will load. Then it will load all that is needed to actually activate that chat function. So that way you're not loading all those assets up ahead. You're only loading them when it is required, needed. And for example, video, you don't want to load the video overall when you're actually doing it. So what you can do is you can use a thumbnail, just an image, instead of video, because video files are big and all the scripts that is needed to get them going are big. So you can have a screenshot of a video with a play button. You can click on it, and as soon as you click on it, it will load everything that is needed, and that actually puts off a lot of pressure off of you. Okay, and concatenate and minify CSS and JavaScript files. So always minify. It is basically, we have already discussed this. So minification is the process to compress the code. If it's CSS or JavaScript, compress the code and keep the size as small as possible so it is loaded for you quickly. And concatenation is the process where you reduce the number of requests that is needed to load the website. So let's say that you got 5 CSS files, and they are a really small CSS files, a really small code in it. What you can do is you can combine all those 5 CSS files into one. That way you're only making one request to load that whole 5 CSS file worth of code instead of making 5 different calls, because each time browser has to send a request, it's taking time, it has to process a lot of things, and then it will slow down your website. But you have to be careful when it comes to concatenation. So if you have really small size files, then it is good to concatenate them, combine them. But if they are really big, then you don't want to do that, because when they're really big, then to download that single file, it will take really long and it will slow down your website even more. So there should be a balance, basically. I see there are a few questions. Okay, I intend to use Pixar for analytics.
I think these ones are, I guess we might wait because you're going to talk about Google and you're going to go into that. So
yes,
I see them, Laura. I just think that, maybe they're going to be either answered or you're going to get a better explanation when we get to the part where you show us the tools. I think that's what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Okay, where were we?
But I love that we're dropping questions in there now because it gives us a chance to be optimal with our time.
All right. So third metric is cumulative shift. Cumulative layout shift. This metric promotes the website that have good visual stability. So when we talk about visual stability in terms of this metric, what Google is basically looking at is any sudden change in the website layout that could basically stop intended user behavior. So whenever you have like, I'll give you a quick example of, like, for example, you can actually go into a website, and this is quite common, by the way. Like, you can go into a website and you know, keep scrolling down, and all of a sudden you have, let's say, ad box, you know, like a box that is showing you a random ad. And what that happen when that happens is, like, when it loads, it actually pushes all the content that is below it. Yeah. So those things are like, because ads are usually you know, heavy in size, they start to load, and when they load, they cause the sudden layout shift, and that causes all the content below it shift. So and just an example is like, you can have like two buttons, like, you know, one of this button, like, just imagine this line as one button and there's the second one. And let's say that a website that, like, they have you know, injected a square onto, you know, between these two sections. Of course, it's going to take much space, and it will shift this section, you know, further down. And let's say that you're trying to click onto this line, and because there's a layout shift, you suddenly click onto this line, you know. So that is basically, and when it's a button, and buttons do some kind of action, you know, it could cause an unintended action. That is what Google is basically trying to avoid with this with this metric. Okay, there are a few ways to, you know, avoid this. Is to load web fonts properly, because so what happens is, when you load web fonts, if it's not done properly, you will see a flash. So for a split second, you will see the whole screen actually goes blank, or, you know, and there are layout shift because it changes the you know, font once it actually has loaded it. So you can always, you know, use the property called, it is a little bit technical, but, you know, just bear with me here. So the property called font display, and you can set it to swap. So it takes care of that flashing issue. And there are a few other things, like, for example, always, it's a best practice. You should always have width and height attribute onto image and iframes. Which reserves the space for you, like for that asset in the browser. So let's say that you got a banner image, and it is like, you know, I'm just gonna 100 megapixel in height. So before it loads, what happens, like, if you have that 100 pixel height set, what browser will do is, like, even before it actually loads it, it will know that, okay, whatever image is going to be loaded, it will be 100 pixel in height, and I have to reserve that space. So that's how it works. Otherwise, what it will do is, like, it will if it doesn't know what should be the height, it will load it, and automatically, you know, just layout shifts to the, you know, down, because image needs that space. Generate critical CSS and load it first. We have discussed this before. So critical CSS above the fold, you know, it takes care of all the top parts, so there's no you know, layout shift happens because it has already loaded. Ensure all assets above the fold are requested as soon as possible. Yes, it is important, because you see, if you load anything that is, you know, comes down the page, and then later on you load something that is up, you know, above the fold, or, you know, in the top area of the page, it will create that you know, layout shift. So you would always want to, you know, go from top to bottom. Avoid inserting elements towards the top of the page so it doesn't cause layout shift. This is exactly what I just mentioned, is always go from top to bottom, and all the resources should be loaded in that order. Right, moving on to the next one. All right, so how to calculate core web vital scores? It is pretty simple, and one of the tools, it's called Google Page Speed Insight. This is one of the tools, it is from Google, so you can trust them, of course, because it's their algorithm, and it's it also gives you really good insights into how you can actually deal with a specific issue. I'll show you in a second. I'll give you a bit of rundown on it. And there's another tool, it's called Web Vital Chrome extension. So if you're using Chrome browser, you can install this extension, and and when you load your website, it will show you the score of each metric to you. So, all right. So yeah, here are a few tools. Like in this, we have covered a few tools for WordPress and for generic websites. The reason we did that is because WordPress actually powers majority of the websites on the internet, and there are some generic tools as well. So whatever everything that we discussed in these slides today, what we have minification, concatenation, loading forms, and all those things, and some of you understands it really well, some of you maybe not, because it could get technical, as I warned at the beginning. But WP Rocket plugin is something we use in some of the projects, not all of them, but this is what we have found is really effective tool that you can use to take care of most of the things. So you can search for it on Google, WP Rocket plugin. You can actually search it into even Google. It will be the first link on there. All you have to do is install it and set it up onto your WordPress website, and you will see a drastic results. If you're scoring really low, it will take you to a really decent score. Cache external scripts. So in this whole slide, I have put a lot of pressure onto loading JavaScript files efficiently, because this is another part that actually causes all the websites to score very poorly on these metrics. So cache external scripts, what it does, it scripts like Google Analytics, scripts like Pixel script, from Facebook, from social media, scripts. It basically stores everything locally on your server. It also caches it, and it actually delivers all those files to you, to your users from your own server, and that actually makes a huge difference. And when you use this, and it is also like plug and play kind of scenario, so you can always have it on your website, and they are very lightweight, so they don't really slow down your website. They are basically help you improve the performance of your website. And there's Smush. Smush is a plugin that helps you in image optimization. So we always recommend all our clients to optimize images before you actually put them onto the server. And there are a few tools coming that you can use them to optimize it before you load it onto the server. But it's always good to have a plugin that is available within this platform that you can use to optimize your images. But again, I would suggest you optimize it before you load it. That way you also save the space onto your server. So some of the servers, they have like a disk limit, how much space you have available onto your server. So images are actually one of the biggest assets that actually take up a lot of size. So you should always optimize it, and you'll save the bandwidth, you'll save the, you'll score really well in performance, and you will not run out of space on your servers when you do this. Okay, there are other tools that are generic tools for image optimization. We use tiny PNG and squish.app quite a lot. Whenever we need something, yeah, we do that. And if you like, in some cases, some platforms, as I mentioned before, they don't take care of these things by themselves. So, but they will give you an ability to do it yourself. So in that case, like for example, CSS minification, you can do it on this website, cssminifier.com. It is pretty easy. There are, minification sites for JavaScript as well, but with JavaScript, it could get really complicated, and it could even break your website. That is why I haven't put it in there. So if you need to do JavaScript minification, it is best to do it for someone who's like technical, Yeah, we'll just move on. Okay, recently we launched a website for one of our clients, and all the solutions that we have discussed today, we were able to achieve 97 out of 100 and 98 out of 100. So that these, all these tools and techniques that we are telling you about, these actually work. And this is something that we use ourselves. So, in this, what happens is if you score like pretty low, in red zone, which is like, below 20. Yeah, it's always good to score as high as possible. And with these tools, it will get you to a really decent score. But when you really want to have that perfect score, what happens is like you really have to, get your hands dirty with the code and, get into the code. It gets really technical, but all these tools will get you at a really decent scores that, in most cases, you'll be fine with. Yeah, so these are the scores for our client, 97, 98, and here are the scores for our own website. So we score 97 out of 100 and 100 out of 100. And so just to give you an idea that this website is not WordPress. So, we have covered tools that you can use on WordPress and on non-WordPress. So this is not WordPress, and this, like our own website, is WordPress. So basically, what I'm trying to tell you is like both of these, all these suggestions work on different areas. All right. Okay, so in this area, we have worked a lot in this area, and this is what we do, we know what works, what doesn't. So if you have any questions or if you need any assistance or just guidance, we are here to help. You can email us at hello@simplebrackets.co.nz, or you can book a consultation at simplebrackets.co.nz/book, and it is free for all the Digital Boost viewers. So yeah, feel free to get in touch. All right, that's actually the end of our slides.
The end and the beginning, I think.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Now we've got all this stuff to do, and yes. I really appreciate you extending that opportunity for people to reach out for a little bit of advice here and there. That's really kind of you to give your time like that, and also that free consultation. Take advantage of it, guys. I mean, like, hello. Obviously, I've watched this and gone, now I know how much I don't know, and I'm sure we've all experience the same. But what I love about learning tech, and it's something that I didn't really think about in the past, it's like learning a new language, and once you start to uncover what these words and acronyms and stuff means, it's like you've opened up a door to a whole new world. Yes. And it's really cool. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, don't feel overwhelmed. It's like, this is a great opportunity for you to take some ownership on your business as well, which I think is a really cool thing. This is a super important aspect of business, and it's, it isn't the simplest thing, but nothing is not learnable, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And during this, pandemic and lockdown, it actually gives us so much time, and it has, made it so critical that, everybody wants to, do business online now, and everything is, the way everything is right now, a lot of businesses are moving to, online world. So you want to be most effective and, successful as possible in this area.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's get into some of these questions. So the first one I'm going to take from the chat, which is, do you know anything about how to speed up Squarespace sites as they load slowly?
Well, all these things that we have discussed, it actually, it can be different for different platforms, because every platform, handles it in a very different way. And in most cases, you will be able to do it by, optimizing your images. So as I mentioned, some of the tools, online tools, so you can, optimize your images before you actually load them onto your Squarespace website. And if you have any like any files, any code files that you think that can be compressed, you can do that as well. But first of all, everything actually starts from the test. So you should test your website first, onto Google PageSpeed. I'll quickly show you something, because it actually gives you a lot of good information that you can use to basically, yeah. So this is our website, or just client's website. Yeah, so you see all these things that they actually show you, like for example on here, like images here. So like for example, this is what it's showing is, okay, this website is actually expecting, like this Google score is actually expecting that you actually add a width and height for the specific image. You see, so now okay, what's wrong with it. Even though you actually we score pretty high, you can actually pinpoint each issue that you're dealing with, and this will actually give you everything, and you know exactly what to do on there. Not everything is going to be as simple, but like for example, this one is quite simple. So it also gives you a thumbnail. Where this website like image is. Okay, it is on your homepage. You go into homepage, go into if the platform has something like visual editor, you can add the height and width for it. Or if it has, if you're good with code, you can go into the code and add just a width and height, and it will solve that issue, and it will increase the scores for you even more.
Cool. So a follow-up question here. It says, what if it says it takes too long for first meaningful paint?
Okay, that's exactly, so what it means is, meaningful paint is basically when you load your website. So I'm just quickly going to open up simple brackets again. So this is basically what you see on here is the about the fold. And this is the section what you really want to push and load it as soon as possible, because like once this is loaded, now okay, the website has loaded. That's actually a meaningful load that you can start interacting with the website, right? If you don't see anything, it's white, then it's not really, it's not loaded, and people won't be feel comfortable in go scrolling down or whatever.
So the meaningful, so that wording is just the same thing as everything.
Yeah, same thing as largest contentful paint. Yeah, it's the first metric that actually affects that meaningful part.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Now let's get to one of these. I'm going to come back to your another question that you had there, Sarah, but let's get into this one. I intend to use pictures for analytics. How should these be prioritized? I consider them very important due to the information that I will gain. Will these impact in a negative way for Google rankings?
Yes, these things could actually impact in Google ranking, because it actually affects those three metrics that we discussed about. But again, of course, these are important, because Pixar is basically used for basically tracking all the Facebook advertisement, all those things, or Facebook users that are, visiting your website. Of course, that is important and you want to keep it. But in one of the slides, I also mentioned that you can actually load it, but load it in a way that they're most efficient. You cache them properly. And there's one plugin, if you're using WordPress, we suggested one plugin that is called external script. I'll quickly open that up.
I was looking it up as well. I've got it here.
Yeah, cache external scripts. So what it does is it will download that Pixar script for you, and then it loads it from your own server. That is way faster than asking for a third-party server to send it to you. So that's how you do it. And also WP Rocket plugin actually helps you a lot as well. But if you are on a website that is like non-WordPress, then it could, like, again, there could be so many scenarios. Every platform works in a different way, but there are other ways you can do it on basically any platform.
And I would definitely recommend, like, if you are on one of those other platforms, to get in touch with their support and be like, this is what's happening. How do I fix this? I know what I need to, I know what I'm trying to do, but what is the integration? What is the process?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that would be like a really good thing. Things that are tracking. Pixels. Pixels are the things that track your behavior. Okay. Is the Google algorithm now centered on the layout, loading time, and all the technical stuff you've discussed, rather than the metadata, domain, page authority, and links, keywords, phrases, content, value, quality, their search, or perhaps a combination of all? What should I focus on to ensure my website and all content get front and center?
Okay, so
that's a very long question. Sorry.
Yes. Absolutely. But I can see that Laura has done quite a bit of research.
She's been coming to a lot of these sessions, Yogesh.
Which is good. Laura, you're going in the right direction. That's a really good question. So SEO is a really broad topic. SEO has so many things into it, and Google algorithm update that actually came through recently, that affects how SEO works, basically, like how the priorities that you have to focus on to basically get an edge, and have like an advantage point against your competition. So in this case, what happens is Google Web Core Vitals, like, it is important, definitely very important to optimize, but this is something that can happen very quickly. You can just work on this. You can and within a week you can have a desired score, and that's like small picking, but still very effective, very powerful aspect that you're covering. So why not do it? The other aspect, when you are asking for domain authority, link building, keywords, and content, all of these things can go hand in hand, because these things doesn't happen overnight. This is something that you have to work towards. That this is something like domain authority does not go up as fast. It will take you like months to build that. Now, this is basically like all these things that you're talking about. This is basically like a reputation that you're trying to build in this online world, and that doesn't happen overnight. You build authority when you have like really good content for you, on your website, and have like when you share a really good content, what happens is other reputed websites, they link to you, and when they link to you, it is like a vote towards your website, that everybody wants to link to you, and Google sees that, and that's how your domain ranking, domain authority, everything increases. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, content is still the king. Content is the most important thing on the website. So you can have everything perfect, but the content is bad, then it's not gonna do you any good. And so content, definitely focus on content, but this is something an easy picking, but still have a huge impact on how Google sees your website. So,
and I think like what I love about this session is like it still had, so So as I'm understanding it, it's like both have value. Content is king, but this
Yes.
aspect we hadn't really touched on yet. So we've talked a lot about content, and so this is like a really
Yes.
cool thing that you
Yes.
do. I would say you probably see a lot, Yogesh, that
Mm.
sites aren't working at their optimal
Yep.
speed and stuff like
Mm,
that.
mm, mm.
And so I was like, you've done such a great job to teach us about this, by the way, because it
Yeah.
is not an easy
Thank
subject to break down, and I'm super impressed because I feel like I actually understand what's happening.
Yeah, I was, as I, warned at first that it could get a little technical, but, I wanted to, explain it to everyone, basically. Some people like technical details, some people don't, but at the end, there are solutions anyone can implement, basically. So,
Yeah, I mean, if you had heaps of content on your site, but you go to that site and it doesn't load quickly, you're
mm.
like, come
Yeah,
on,
that's,
like,
yeah,
why am I still
yeah,
waiting here? This picture
yeah,
still isn't downloaded.
yeah,
I can't do anything. We know that
yeah,
everybody's attention span is what, like 3 to 5 seconds.
yes,
So you want to
exactly.
have that at the best speed. So there's no point in
Yes.
doing all that content, really. It's the
Yeah,
chicken or
yeah,
the
true.
egg, isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly.
Mm,
It is exactly like that. So
mm,
content is important, but this is as important, to, all of that. You can have, average content and have something like this, you'll still be far ahead. But if you, have really great content, your website doesn't even load, what Google sees all of that and
mm,
it
mm,
tracks all of that. And when it sees that, okay, people are visiting your website even though you have a great content and they're bouncing off, like leaving your website right
mm,
away, then it basically is a negative point against for
mm.
your website, and then Google won't recommend as much your website anymore, and it
Okay.
will do move on to the competition, your
Cool.
competition. Yeah, yeah.
So here's another comment here. It says, and can you do something to improve CLS,
SEO. Yeah.
sorry,
Mhm.
cumulative layout shift? I
Okay.
think you touched on that, but I,
Yes, absolutely. Like there are 2, 3 slides on it that explains all of that. Okay, for some reason, okay. I'm looking at a different screen
yeah, this is the
here.
chat
Okay,
instead of
all
the
right, the
Q&A.
chat. All right.
Yeah, that's okay.
Um,
I
yeah,
would
CLS is
recommend just,
already covered.
oh, sorry, Yogesh. Go
Mhm.
ahead.
So yeah, CLS is already covered, so that question is already covered in the slides. So that is like one of the main metric, one of the main, like one of the 3 metric that Google uses to, score stuff. So I'll quickly just explain it right now. So CLS, so it's visual stability performance. So it's basically, don't do anything that actually, make a change in the layout. That doesn't cause the layout shift. Yeah, like for example, when you're scrolling down a website, if you're loading like a ad, a box that actually shows you an ad, because ads are like really heavy in size, they load slowly, and once they are loaded completely, and then it needs a space, and when it occupies that space, it shifts all the content that is below it down, far down, and that causes the layout shift.
Mm.
Yeah, things like that. There are all the points are explained in this presentation, and Anna Marie, this presentation will be available as a PDF for everyone to download,
Yeah,
because
will be, you send it to me and then it goes
yeah,
up onto the website. So within the
yeah,
next couple of days, it'll be up there and
yeah,
you'll be able to download it as a PDF, as a learning summary. So if you're not
yeah.
familiar with this site, not all of the sessions have that, but
Mm.
your guest is very
Oh, I
kind
see.
to
Mm.
submit his PPT. So when we do get them, we load them onto the site. So if you're streaming with us on other platforms, that's one of the things that you might miss out on. So I do recommend that you do register to Digital Boost. If you only stream with us through the live kind of streams, you don't really get access to a lot of the competitions and a lot of the additional tools that we have, including having the whole site in Tereo. So if you're, if that's your language, then your first language or your preferred language, like you can actually view the whole site in Tereo. So do take advantage of that. And then of course, here's his free consultation. Oh, what a gift. So that was just saying, and can you do something to, so the follow up to that, can you do something to improve CLS? It says, does it work for Squarespace? Okay. And then just thanks for your great
Um,
advice. Yeah.
Yeah. So CLS, again, CLS is something, that causes a layout shift. And even, it doesn't matter which platform you're on. If you don't have those kind of elements, then you will be fine. So CLS, so in majority of the cases you will be fine, but again, like every platform is different, every website is actually different, so you have to basically go through that test that actually gives you just figure it out if you
Do
actually
the
even
test.
have that issue.
Mhm.
You might not even have that issue. So when
Mhm.
you look into that Google page speed test, it will tell you the total blocking time. If your total blocking time is high, then you have that issue, and then you look into it, and it will give you the list of things that is actually causing it, and then you work on it. It could be like a really long JavaScript file that is taking a long time to load, or it could be some CSS file, and then you deal with that issue. And we have shown you how to do that in
I
both
love
cases.
that. This is
Yeah.
so great. And you
And then also
can
one thing I
apply it.
actually forgot to mention is, because these sessions are very limited, in time, we got, and everyone here is, taking out their precious time, and sharing that with us. We have also, worked on a blog that actually, explains everything in even more detail, and you can even follow, and tools, all more tools are available. We will publish that today, and it will be completely based on it. We actually made that blog completely just for this session, so it will have even more information, so you can check it out on our website.
Awesome. Oh, that's such a
Mhm.
gift. Oh, thank you so much, Yogesh. This is
Yeah,
fantastic.
no worries.
I want to say thank you again from everyone here. This has been an amazing session where I've like literally learned so much and know like now want to like go and dive into this kind of stuff and learn more about it, because it's just a really exciting area to all the background stuff. Once you kind of understand some of the stuff on the front, you're kind of going, oh, now there's this whole area I can explore. This is cool.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate you delving into some of these areas and helping us to understand how these things work a lot better. And you're fantastic at explaining it. So thank you so much for
Yeah,
this
you're
detailed
most welcome.
presentation. And
Yeah.
for those of you that are still hanging on, I'm just going to stop the live stream, but I just want to make sure we made an adjustment to the schedule this week. And I just want to let you know what that is. So ka kite, everyone. Let's stay out. Ka kite, Yogesh.
Yeah, thank you, Anna Marie, and thank you for the invitation. Yeah, it has been great, and yeah, thank you. You guys have a